Roger, go for deploy.
All right, guys, welcome back to Adventure Fit Radio. Today, we've got a man by the name of Nick Fowler.
Nicholas Fowler.
So Nick grew up in Argentina. Really interesting story. Grew up in Argentina, became a professional climber, basically, and moved to the States and was climbing in Yosemite National Park. He holds climbing records for El Capitan, one of the crazy climbs out in Yosemite. He actually free climbed it a bunch of times with no ropes. He's out of control in that regard. But he's also owner of Massif Athletics and also he's the head strength and conditioning coach for Brute Strength with our friend Mike Cazu. So, heaps going on in this interview. I had a real good time talking to the man himself. Tommy, what did you think?
Yeah, I thought it was cool. I found it amazing that he never got stressed about climbing without a bloody rope.
Isn't that mental?
That is insane. How would you not get stressed? And remember when he said, well, I mean, you guys will find out shortly, but he mentioned a part where he came very close to death up there.
Yeah.
It was literally hanging on by a thread, and he wasn't even worried about that.
Yeah.
My issue would be, okay, so I'm still alive, and I've got fucking half a mountain to go, you know?
Crazy. So heaps of good training stuff here, guys. Heaps of good, just good conversation about,
For sure.
Yeah, climbing and living abroad, and lots. He's a very, very diverse kind of guy.
And then also Massive Athletics and what they're doing there in terms of biohacking and getting all the body right in terms of breathing and mindfulness and training and nutrition.
He's good. He knows it all. So,
good.
So guys, this podcast is brought to you by True Pride. True Pride are a wealth creation service who work with ambitious individuals and families looking to way less take control and get ahead. Head to www.truepride.com.au/ADVF. Book a call on the website. If you decide to go through with the guys, you'll get a joining fee of $297 waived. Me and Tommy are working with those guys. They're really good. Check them out. We're also brought to you by Carve. Carve are a company that specializes in anything digital, from building apps, designing a logo, automating your business, down to setting up your next event. Carve are where I get my assistants from, guys. I have 3 full-time assistants. We pay around $6 US an hour or $8 Australian. And if you want to upscale your business or get more time in your life, trust me, you want to head to Carve, www.carve.ph/ADVF. We're also brought to you by Adventure Fit Travel. Make sure, head to our website, guys. Check out the trips we've got coming up. Check out all of our blogs. We've got all of our bloggers up and running again. And check out all of our podcasts on there. And and use the code RADIO for 10% off if you book a holiday with Adventure Fit Travel. Here's the show. Alrighty, welcome back to Adventure Fit Radio, guys. Here we are with Nick Fowler today. Before we throw to Nick, I've got Tommy on my left as usual. And we're going to start off with a little tribute, Tommy's tribute, to the man, Nick Fowler.
That goes a little something like this. All right, straight into it. Nick Fowler, Nick Fowler, Nick Fowler, Nick Fowler, la 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 la, massive. Welcome aboard, mate.
Thank you.
It's the most basic.
Are you for real?
Yeah, straight in.
Jeez. All right, there you go. What a well thought out. What a well thought out tribute that
Believe
one
it or
was.
not, the playing was an original by me, and it says it's called Classical Nick, and you're like, I think I could take it somewhere.
I love it. I love it.
Good stuff. Hey, Nick, welcome to the show.
Yeah, I'm honored to be able to chat with you guys for a little bit. Looking forward to it.
Cool. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? We read that you grew up in Argentina. Is that true?
That is, yeah. I grew up in Argentina. My mom's side of the family is all Argentine, and
Right.
still have family down there and cousins and aunts and kind of families scattered kind of all around the world. But and my dad's from the States, but kind of grew up down there. Moved to the States. Maybe when I was like around 8 years old. Ended up in Miami, Florida, and so I went to school in the Northeast. About a little after that, drove out to the West Coast, San Francisco, to kind of go to school, and spent about 10 years out there. And then so far, I've been about 10 years here in Salt Lake City. So it's been good. Been bouncing around a little bit, and but growing up, visiting, traveling to Argentina and other relatives like in Spain and around Europe was pretty memorable for sure.
Yeah, cool. So you're Argentinian born?
I was born in Nicaragua. But then,
really?
But then I don't know, like 3 months, not even after I was born, and moved to Argentina. So,
wow, really? Nicaragua.
Yeah, cool.
That's cool. So whereabouts did you grow up in Argentina?
We're in Buenos Aires. Yeah,
yep.
right there in the big city.
Cool. I had my finest culinary experience of my life in Argentina, in Buenos Aires. Had the steak of all steaks.
What was it? I'm curious.
It was a 1 kilogram butterfly cut. Can't remember what
1 kilogram of steak.
Yeah. So it's like, you think of like a novel, like a book, like a huge, like an encyclopedia,
like an atlas.
Yeah, and if you think of standing it up on its spine and then cutting down the middle, and poof, it lays out in front of you. It was 1 kilograms at
1 kilograms.
1 kilogram.
Okay. Obviously, that's the Argentinian metric system over there.
Yes.
But I can't remember the name of the steakhouse, but it was the world's. They say because I was there with a buddy, and we were hanging around with 2 English guys as well, and we said, all right, I was there last night. We wanted to go out for a good steak, and I said, look, we're in Argentina. They claim to have the best steakhouses in the world, the best steak in the world. We're in Buenos Aires, the capital. Yeah, I said let's just load up. Let's find the best steakhouse in Argentina. See if we can get in. And I can't remember what the name of it right now, but you didn't. It was so popular. They opened 2. There was 2 restaurants on opposite corners of the street. They were huge, and you just go there and line up and just hope to get a table. So,
wow.
But it was amazing. It was 1 kilogram, and they brought out like 20, 30 different dipping sauces all throughout the night. I love Buenos Aires. It would have been a great place to grow up. So, did you travel much through South America and Argentina itself as a kid, Nick? Or
yeah, we did. I definitely remember like growing up. My family and I always, we traveled around, kind of always went, somewhere, right? So, my mom has a sister, a couple of brothers, and they kind of moved to all over the place. So had one of her brothers, my uncle, in Sao Paulo, and before that in Belgium, and then one's right in London. So I have a bunch of family in London, and getting away to like places like Spain, and so it definitely. I grew up kind of traveling the world a little bit, visiting family, and so that definitely. We visit family these days. It's, I think, grandparents have died and people have moved on, things have changed, and I have kids now. And so it's a little harder to travel, but when we do, it's great to have family to be able to pop in, especially in places like Argentina, right? Where it's just so many good things down there. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I always say that the steak and the people are what Argentina is known for. Two great things.
So I saw also, Nick, that you've had a real background in climbing. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how that all started?
Yeah, it definitely wasn't until later in life that I got introduced to climbing. But basically, driving out to San Francisco is where I ended up kind of pursuing school, and I remember driving through, cross country. Remember driving through Yosemite Valley, and that's the first time I had really been introduced to anything like that in my life.
Yeah.
And I remember looking up at El Capitan, which is like, 3,000, 3,200 vertical feet of like sheer granite and just this beautiful valley. And I remember vividly seeing people climb on that, and I was 21 years old at the time, and I just couldn't wrap my head around it. It really felt like I was looking at people walking on the moon or in space or something. It was just so just absolutely amazing. And I think that at that point I decided, I was like, I am going to do that. And I was like, I am going to start to climb because this is just awesome. And and that kind of kicked off, I don't know, pretty ambitious set of years where, I'd moved out there for school, basically to, get a degree in photography, which I did. And long story short, I spent a lot more time pursuing climbing than putting into my photography. And just slowly over time, the two kind of offset where I ended up just, that's what I did. I climbed, guided, professional climber for many years. I ended up moving to Yosemite and living in Yosemite, working for Yosemite Search and Rescue there, and later on becoming a firefighter and getting to work on the helicopter, fire rescue helicopter there, becoming a firefighter. And and so
let's see.
What a place to work.
Oh, do you ever get pissed off when people call it Yosemite?
Yosemite, yes. Yeah,
sorry, what?
It was some of my best years for sure, in a lot of respects. I think there was a huge period of time in my life where I didn't wake up by an alarm clock, and literally just no responsibilities, waking up and just asking myself, what am I going to do today, right? Being around kind of the best of the best in terms of climbing. And I was lucky enough to climb with some really, really good climbers and get mentored by some fantastic climbers, and ended up putting up speed records. And
really,
there's a couple, I think a couple still stand, but
that's for climbing in Yosemite, or
in Yosemite. And then, that led to kind of, I lived in Chamonix for 9 months, and, traveled around Himalayas, Baffin Island.
Sick.
So it was the catalyst for a huge change and a new chapter in my life. And, it's pretty cool. And so, I spent those years, so I had dedicated, right? I'd seen El Cap, and I was like, I want to do that. And so for 6 months, I just set out to learn how to climb. Mm-hmm. And it was about 6 months later that I found myself with two of my friends, maybe 9 months, that climbing El Cap. And we took, I think it was like 6 days, 7 days. It was just horrendous, right? It was literally I always referred to it, and during the time it was like, I always used to say, this is like building a pyramid, because it's just slow, methodical work.
Yeah.
So imagine, it usually takes anywhere from 3 to 5 days for somebody to climb El Cap. And so it requires you to bring water. It's like vertical camping, right?
Yeah.
And so we, got on it, super excited, started climbing, and a couple things happened on that climb that I think really changed the way I wanted to climb and I approached climbing. So I think it was day 2 that we had two guys with nothing but a little water bottle just blaze by us climbing El Cap in a day. And,
jeez.
Yeah, and
that's embarrassing.
Yeah, right. And I'm like, what are we doing wrong? Like, I was like, hey, and just this moment of awe, and it was similar to like me looking up at El Cap and seeing these people who climb, and I looked at these two like, what? Like, I don't understand this. Like, how can this be? Yeah. And so they blow by us, they say hello, whatever. And then the next day, the route we took kind of connected a couple different parts of El Cap and the climb. But these guys, I looked down, and these two climbers are coming up again. They were the same two folks.
Really? Just doing laps?
Yeah.
Cutting laps of El Cap?
Yeah, completely. And then that's when I really got kind of pissed off, and I was like, what the hell?
Started kicking rocks off at these
Yeah.
dudes.
So you basically rocked up to a Formula One race in a bicycle.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. And if it wasn't bad enough 2 days in a row, the third day, these same guys blow by us again. And and I found out unfortunately the late Brian McRae was one of them, and Eamon McNeely, and they were trying to do I think 5 El Caps in 5 days at the time. But
So what is the record? What is the record for climbing? How quickly can you climb El Capitan? Like, what's the current record?
I think on the nose it's something like an hour 29 or 30 minutes or something like that. I don't know what the current time is. But it kind of depends on the route. So like there's different routes of different difficulty up, Cap. And so some records are like 10 hours. Some records are like 22 hours. Some are, an hour and a half. So it depends on that. So, so I mean, that's what, so seeing those guys and topping out, I was like, you know what? I am never spending a night on this thing again. It was like the most miserable 6 days of life, right? I'm
not the best, fuck it.
Right? Type 3 fun all the way, right? So, type 1 fun is like where you're having fun in the moment. Type 2 fun is where, you kind of have fun, like you kind of realize you're having fun right after the moment. And then like type 3 fun is like, it's really only years later that you moments.
That was like my experience with bungee jumping for the first time. I did the world's biggest bungee, and I said, I think that might be type 4 fun because I'm still waiting to get the joy from that. I said to my mate afterwards, he goes, "How was it?" I said, "That was fucked. That was not fun at all."
I want my money back.
Oh, that is funny. Where was that?
That was in South Africa at Blaukren's Bridge it's on halfway from Cape Town to Jeffreys Bay on the Garden route. So
very cool.
It's I believe it's 265 meters of free fall, or of not free fall because you've got the pulley of the cord, but the pull of the cord, but 265 meters. So you're over the top about another 265 meters, I would say, until the bottom of the gorge, and so you bounce 265 meters, you bounce back up, and then you do 200 meters, and you bounce, which is like the 5th biggest bungee in the world. Then you bounce, your third bounce is 170 meters, which is like 8th ranked, and then you're just bouncing around there for 10 minutes, and it was good. Like, I'm glad I did it. It's one of the things that when you're backpacking in South Africa, you just have to do, because there's two bookends, not bookends, but like 2 destinations, Jeffreys Bay and Cape Town. And if you're driving through Blackens Bridge, you're pretty much going to one of those 2. So everybody, when you get to Cape Town or you get to Jeffreys Bay and you've just got into a hostel, everyone will ask you, "Oh, did you do the bungee? Did you do the bungee?" And so we figured out.
This is not fun.
We figured out. That's exactly what it sounded like. Yeah. We figured out pretty quickly that we had to do it and just bite the bullet, and then. Yeah, it was good though. But what's your greatest like climbing achievement, Nick, that you've had?
Well, I guess there's different versions of it, but there's a couple that stand out. One, so I'm pretty sure, just because there's been nothing written about it, but I'm the first and only person to on-site solo an El Cap route in a day, and so. What that kind of means is climbing an El Cap route by myself, not having climbed it before, in less than 24 hours.
Shit.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I did most of it ropeless, without a rope, and then just maybe like a total of maybe 300 meters with a rope, maybe 350.
Ropeless. So when you say ropeless, as in like if you made one false move, you'd let me off.
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh, man.
That's insane.
Yeah, and a lot of it was, there's different types of climbing. There's aid climbing, which you're kind of pulling on gear that you put into the rock. And then there's free climbing where you're just climbing the rock itself. And El Cap is a lot of aid climbing where you're putting a piton in, you're putting a piece of gear in, pulling on something to kind of get yourself up the rock. And so, so that was pretty, that was definitely stood out in my mind. I had a goal of trying to do 2 in one day by myself. But I kind of cut that short. I did one route, Zodiac, which is a neighboring route, in like 10 hours, and then came down and tried to go up Tangerine Trip, and ended up taking a big fall. And, I just kind of 14 hours into it, I was just beat and decided to call it. But yeah, and then there's, I don't know. I mean, I think the most fun I've ever had on a climb in Yosemite is probably like Lurking Fear with Yuji Hirayama, who fantastic climber. I forget that we're all old now, but he is like just an awesome, genuine-hearted, sincere guy, and who I learned a lot from. And we climbed Lurking Fear in 3 hours and 4 minutes together. Okay. So so that's pretty. I think that was definitely a moment that I remember. But then, I don't know, like living out in Chamonix, just climbed so much cool stuff out there, and trips to Himalayas and back.
Chamonix, France, right? French Alps.
Yes, French Alps. Yeah, right there at the kind of the Italian, Switzerland, French.
Yeah. I had a mate that was living out there last year. He's a trail runner. He does. It's just what he does. We lift weights or do whatever we do. He's a trail runner day to day. And he now travels the world doing different runs. And he's got sponsored by a bunch of different companies. And yeah, he was out in Chamonix and would just put up photos of running these epic trails along these. And all you could see in the background was these snow-capped peaks and all these epic like tree-lined ridges, and it was it was sick. I've never been there, but it looks so good. But
how awesome is that? That's great.
Yeah, it was great. Hey,
I had a mate that was French once, actually.
What's that?
I had a mate that was French once. Yeah.
Cool story, man. Just want to get something in there. Tom.
Just to click. Yeah, I felt like I've been out of it for a second. Yeah, I got it. My alarm went off.
What about when you're free climbing? How did you start free climbing, Nick? And how do you get your head around that? How do you stay calm, and how do you trust yourself? That's watching people free climb. To me, that's the one thing, like climbing El Capitan, I'm like, wow, that must be pretty hard, and that takes a lot of skill. When I see people free climbing stuff like that, I can't comprehend it in my head. I can't get my head around like how difficult that must be, but it doesn't seem that difficult to people that are doing it. You see people that are climbing up these rock faces, and they just look like little spider monkeys just scampering their way up there. Like, how do you start learning to free climb? How do you trust yourself? How do you get over the mental aspect? Talk about that for a little bit. Yeah,
that's an interesting. I've actually been trying to come up with answers to that question, because I'm not sure if my experience getting into climbing was very I don't know. It felt very naive, and I just had no idea what should be done or shouldn't be done, or like the way. So imagine like, here I am coming from, Florida, right? Flat, never really seen any big mountains in my life, driving to Yosemite, see some people climbing, and I'm like, I want to do that. And so for me, there was no preconceived ideas of what you should do and what you shouldn't do and what people do and what can be accomplished. And I think that was a big part of kind of how I ended up where I was. Because I think I would have been brought up seeing people and hearing and understanding, oh, this is what you do. And I think that's kind of, we get caught up in that in our lives, right? Like with limitations, and our limitations are imposed by our perspectives on what is possible and what people are doing. And so a good example is, before climbing El Cap, I went and climbed Fairview Dome, which is like 1,000 feet of, fairly moderate climbing with a buddy of mine, somebody I knew. And we started out, and, this thing takes a half a day to climb. Like, it's pretty reasonable. It's one of the 50 classic climbs of North America, I think. And it's just a classic climb, right? But we ended up not making it to the top before the sun went down. And so we were like 500 feet from the top, and the sun goes down, and neither one of us had headlamps. So we were kind of screwed. we're like, okay, well, we're going to spend the night on this ledge and we can cuddle, and the decision of like, okay, who's going to be the big spoon and who's going to be the little spoon, right? And
you've always got to go the little spoon.
Yeah.
What'd you say, little spoon?
Little spoon. You got to be a little
safer.
spoon. Yeah, it's very safe. That's warm.
Yeah, and so I walked away from that experience. Like sun came up, we went to the top, and my climbing partner at the time thought it was a failure. Right. He thought that this was the worst thing that ever happened. He failed. Like, this is too ambitious, like really not ready for that. And I woke up thinking, this is amazing. Like, you can just go. And if you run out of time, you just sleep where you're at. And then sun comes up and you just keep going again. Like, this is amazing. Right.
And so,
like a lot of like mindset is in perspective. And
for sure.
Whether something's a failure or a success really molds who we are. And I think, like I was pretty, and that's why I say I was pretty naive coming into climbing, because, my decision to get going faster and climb El Cap in the day was this idea of like, well, I'm just going to get rid of the rope because the rope slows you down. Right. And most people would be like, well, that's insane. Like, why would you do that? Right. And so in my early years, I just kind of, got into this flow, and I mean, it was pretty remarkable, I think, and I was really lucky, maybe just to have the people in my life that I had and the opportunities that I had, but it never seemed, I never seemed scared, and I was never worried, or I never thought I couldn't do something, and that's a pretty powerful thing. And in 2006, I stopped climbing completely because of some close calls, a couple times just almost dying and just getting burnt out and a couple different things, right? So in 2006, I pretty much
almost dying. Yeah. Just almost dying.
Yeah.
Oh, I just liked how you're like, oh yeah, a couple of close calls, like just almost dying, and then then we just like, it was just
almost died again next day, and
mentioned in passing.
Yeah.
Totally. And I pretty much stopped climbing overnight.
Wow.
And so the past, I have daughters, and we'd go occasionally, like once a year, just to a local crag or something, but nothing serious. And about a year and a half ago, I recommitted to climbing, maybe 2 years ago. And it was with this idea of like self-exploration, wondering, will I have the mindset that I used to have, right? Can I get that back? How do you train the mind? Can you mold it? Things like that, right? Physically, I was fairly confident that, I could get physically fit enough to do what I used to do. But, how do you work on mental resiliency and mindset? And that's kind of what I've been looking at over the past couple years. And I'll tell you, it's hard because I'm scared now, and I don't want to.
Yeah, you got more people relying on you, and more to lose in your life, I suppose.
Yeah,
it's all right when it's just you.
Totally.
Well, what I find really interesting about free climbing is that I love all that stuff about sort of mental resilience, mental strength, and trying to push through the fear and get yourself into more uncomfortable situations to grow as a person. But I'd say there's a difference between having a fear of something or other, and then having a fear of something which is genuinely dangerous and could honestly kill you. Like, what was the mental battle like when you're doing all that stuff without rope, and how drained were you mentally by the end of it?
I wasn't. I was energized. And it never, and that's the thing, is like I was never scared. I mean, there's some circumstances that
became scary.
Yeah. Like, and that were legitimate. There was one instance with Yuji Hirayama. We're kind of doing a second ascent of this thing in Yosemite. And long story short, I'm Yuji's leading and I'm following, and I kind of pendulum out along these roofs, and the roof edge was really, really sharp. And so as I swung out, it cut the rope that I was on. It was so difficult that I was Jumaring. So I was like climbing the rope to follow Yuji. So I wasn't climbing the rock because it was too difficult for me to climb. Yuji's amazing. You can carry anything. So long story short, like the rope is comprised of a sheath that covers hundreds, I don't know how many, but let's just say 100 core threads, like little strands of, rope. And so when the roof cut the sheath, it pretty much, my weight pulled everything apart. And I remember sitting there and counting 8 core threads that were left. And, 2,000 feet above the valley
Far
floor.
out.
And I had the Jumar over the core threads onto the main rope where above it was cut. And I think it was like 1,500 feet, took us maybe 4 hours. And then the remaining like 400 feet took us like 8 hours because I was literally like fried. And that was one instance where I felt, I've never been shell shocked, but I just imagine like, that mental stress. But I mean, other than circumstances like that, like I never was scared. Like when I climbed El Cap ropeless solo, like I loved it. I felt, to me, it's almost meditative. And so, so I didn't have any like tricks. I didn't have any like, oh, this is what I'm going to work on for my mental mindset. It was just there.
You just had it.
Yeah.
It's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think like a huge fear of mine would be having that, literally hanging on by a thread. And then you sort of look up and you're like, geez, I've done a third of this, man. I'm looking forward to having a panic attack here.
Yeah.
God.
Yeah, awesome. That's so sick. It's such a good story to be able to tell. Even like, your kids would never really know that about you too much until, when they grow up, you can say like, hey, this is what I actually used to do before you guys were around.
I just climbed that.
Yeah.
And then you came along.
So, all right, let's move into more of the current Nick Fowler. So, what made you get into fitness, Nick? Were you always into fitness? I mean, you must have been with your climbing, but what got you into the fitness that you're into now? Yeah,
so it was during my time in Chamonix when I was living there, and I got introduced to Mark Twight, and he had some resources that. He kind of kicked my way, like lactate training, lactate threshold training. And, there was a couple books out at the time, like, climbing light and fast alpinism. And so I was always intrigued about how to go light and fast. And at the time, I had always focused on equipment, systems, like, tricks of the trade, and never really looked at the physical nature of things until I kind of got introduced to Mark Twight and it's kind of some of these resources, and I started reading about it, and I started becoming more and more intrigued. And I think it was an interesting time because I was at the end of my climbing career, and I was kind of burnt out. And part of it was just that it was really tiresome to try to think of the next biggest, greatest, best thing to do.
Yep.
And then the close calls, like, kind of exposed my mortality a little bit. And so like the introduction of kind of intelligent training, for lack of a better term, I found really interesting. And so, I just started becoming like a guinea pig of my own, and, putting a heart rate on and checking my pulse in the morning and doing kind of like the old school biofeedback stuff when I woke up. Used to, started running back then, and really trying to focus around understanding human physiology and how to stress it and make specific changes.
So what were some of the things that you would do in the morning when you would wake up to check your the biofeedback things that you just mentioned? What would you do?
I would wake up and I would take 10. I would give myself 10 breaths, and then I would take my pulse, and I would write that number in a book. And 53, 52, 51. And those were indicators of how rested I was. And it was the first time me looking at like, okay, am I ready to climb today? Because it was very ad hoc before. It was just like, oh, I'm going to go today. And when bad weather comes in, that's when you rest. And so taking a different approach. And so just starting to learn about, the stresses on my body, how much I could take before I needed to rest, things like that. I started to stretch a little bit more. And it was I mean, I look back and I kind of laugh because it's, I don't know, straddle toe touches and the old school stuff, right? There wasn't any PNF stretching or any kind of, but it was there was intent behind it. And then I dedicated like once a week to going and working on threshold training using a heart rate monitor and just based off my max heart rate and some zones and just kind of old school stuff like that. I remember starting to take cold contrast showers. So I'd come back from a like big day of climbing and I'd take a cold shower just for recovery base. So that was like the start of it. Yeah, it was.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So, all right. So fast forward to now. So let's bridge the gap. So you have Massif Athletics now.
Yes.
So you started out obviously taking a more scientific approach to your body for your climbing. I suppose at a certain point everybody starts to mature, and that's probably you're probably gung ho as a kid. Started getting into fitness and really working on your body and your strength there. And then how did you get to where you are now with running your own gym and coaching lots of people? And how did that, like, where did how bridge that gap?
Yeah. So, it was in 2006 that I was introduced to CrossFit as well. And I remember a friend calling me up and saying, "Hey, you got to go, check this CrossFit thing out." And there was really nothing at the time locally here in Salt Lake. And, and so checked out the online thing and, everyone's got that, first experience with the CrossFit story. And it kind of caught my attention. And so that was, that was really the catapult into, the next chapter where for the past 10 years, I've seen CrossFit grow. I've seen the sport grow. I've been able to take my experiences from CrossFit and apply them to individuals and small groups. And so I've never really, all my exposure to CrossFit, I've never participated that much in group fitness. I just haven't, right? And so, reading books on like starting strength and taking seminars with like the old Ripito seminar and CrossFit endurance seminar and going and reading about Poliquin and super training and just absorbing as much as I could, and then getting introduced. So then being able to apply it to myself and kind of just whoever's willing to be my guinea pig back then, right? I'd have a group of friends and every winter we would get together and train and. At the time I kind of built programs and everyone was kind of doing the same thing. And what I slowly started to realize is that, wow, like, okay, I'm getting this effect and I feel this way after a 5x5 back squat. And this person over here feels very different. And just starting to realize like, okay, well, why isn't this person getting the same out of the exact same thing we're doing? Right. And that kind of led to this idea of like dose response training and how, it's what we do is all, and what happens is all predicated on the type of stress we perceive out of it. And so, long story short, kind of got introduced to some mentors and, Max Elhaj, it was huge impact in my life. I think it was, 2010, maybe it was 2010, 2011. I don't know, the years blend, but somewhere in there I got introduced to Max and sat down and kind of, I wanted to learn and I was like, hey, this is what I'm doing. And it just started this relationship that carried on for quite some time. I still consider him a friend. And so he, he really mentored me in terms of being able to look at things a certain way. I was a coach for Training Think Tank for a while. And, when Max lived in Utah here, we were, trying to collaborate on a local project, a gym. We're trying to implement individual training at this one gym, and and so all along the times, I was a wildland firefighter for 15 years. So all that was, that's overlapped and overlaid into everything I'm talking about. And so I kind of got tired of disappearing all summer. And so, I kind of left the Forest Service in a way, kind of took early retirement or whatever. I was a captain of a helicopter crew, helitac crew. And I think my daughter's was the big catalyst. And I remember one winter, just we rented an RV and we kind of drove, big road trip for 2 weeks. And I just, something clicked and I'm like, I just don't want to go back and, give up my years with my daughters, things like that. And that's when, I had been training people up until that point. And so it was like, all right, well, let's, talk. Kind of my wife and I had long conversations, and then Annie and I were just like, okay, let's do this. And that's when kind of Massif Athletics was born about 4.5 years ago or so.
Right.
And so, and it's been an adventure ever since. I'll tell you, being a small business owner is not, I don't know what I expected. It's not what I've been experiencing.
You kind of got to be crazy to be a small business owner. I was at I have a business coach, and once yearly, I've only been with him for 6 months, but once yearly they put on a gala dinner for all their clients and stuff, and you sit down and you meet a bunch of people, and they had a couple of little games. You go and find someone in the room you don't know, and you share some experiences, whatever. And the lingering kind of thought was everyone was kind of talking about their business and where they've come from and the stresses they've had, and everyone was looking at each other and they were kind of thinking, what do we do this for? Like, are we crazy? It's definitely a lot more work than people think. So what is Massif? What is Massif now in terms of like, what are your members? What are your offers? And then like we can get into some more coaching stuff, but like so people know Massif Athletics. What is Massif Athletics? Yeah,
Massif Athletics is a gym here in Salt Lake, and it houses a collection of coaches. And so the coaches basically coach individuals. Our focus is in coaching individuals. And the belief is that this personal relationship with a coach is what fosters long-term athletic development. So not only is it the personal program that's derived from like assessment and testing and figuring out structural imbalances, range of motion imbalances, right? Work capacity testing relative to the sport and yourself as an individual, but it's also the other 23 hours in your life. And so how are you sleeping? How are you eating? What are your stresses in your life? Like, what are some, how's your endocrine health, right? Like, do you have gut issues that's like blunting melatonin release and that's why you can't sleep? Or you just, need, sleep hygiene implemented. And those are just a couple of examples of kind of our holistic approach to athletic development or athlete development. And so essentially, you get a coach and your coach is your guide to fitness. They're the author of your long-term plan. And we coach people remotely, kind of all over the world.
Yep.
And, we have some people here on site, and then we have people who we just had a camp, an athlete camp. It was a 4-day camp. It's our kind of one big camp that we host a year. It's awesome. And people fly in from all over. And, we work on everything from mental resiliency, mindset, to recovery, to training, to, we had a sports doc come in and do FRC movement stuff. We had some breathing, like activating parasympathetic systems. We had a swim coach that, even though it was technique for the swimming, it was more about learning to breathe and breathing efficiencies that translate into other things in our life. So, so that's kind of Massif Athletics. So it's pretty cool.
That's amazing. What do you find that the overall limiting factor to people's sort of, increasing performance is? Like you mentioned before that one of the things you look at is the stresses in people's life, which is kind of like, it's sort of intangible in comparison to looking at someone's range of motion or this and that? How important is that sort of stuff?
Oh, it's huge. I mean, just think about it. Our ability to get stronger, fitter, faster is all predicated on our ability to recover. And training is a stress on our body, and it stresses us. And the crazy thing about stress is that if it's real or it's perceived, it affects us physiologically very similarly, right? It starts to, we react fight or flight in similar ways, release of cortisol, whatever else it might be. And so our ability to recover from that is directly correlated to our gains, right? So if we have, just think about it. If you're sleeping an hour a night, you're not eating, and you're going through a divorce and you're moving, chances are you're not going to get anything out of your training because you can't. And obviously there's like gray areas there. So I think that looking at systemic health and systemic stress is huge, and it's really kind of low hanging fruit. It's definitely hard to shift lifestyle and life stressors, but I think it's hard to quantify, but it's not, I don't think it's that hard. I mean, I think it's pretty basic, right? You make sure you eat enough, you good quality food, and we can go into like all the details about macronutrients and their hormonal effects and all that. But if you just think about it, right? Eat enough, eat good food, make sure you sleep enough, and take time to make sure you can kind of deal with mental, emotional, psychological stress.
All right, guys. So we're just going to have a quick break in the show to thank our sponsors. So firstly, thanks to True Pride. True Pride guys are a wealth creation service. So any level that you're in with your finances, True Pride are there to help you out. So for me and Tommy, we're at the lower end at the moment. So we're trying to work out our budget,
suck.
and we suck. And then we're trying to. So in the budgeting tool, there's Craig aims and the guys at True Pride aim to get a $150 weekly savings. So that's $600 a month for the cost of $97 a month. So it's awesome. Once you have some money in the bank you want to invest, then they can help you invest in many innumerable different ways and help you just get ahead in life, really. And we've been having a good time working with the guys, so you guys should check them out.
For sure.
If you want to do so, head to www.truepride.com.au/ADVF and book a call, and then you will, if you decide to go ahead, you get the joining fee waived of $297. We are also brought to you by Carve. So Carve, guys, I've set up about 5 people with Carve in the last 2 months doing this. So a bunch of different, we've had a gym owner, a retail friend of mine, we've had a tradesman, we've had, who else have we had? A protein supplier who's coming on to sponsor the show in the coming weeks. We've had a number of different guys. They've spoken to the guys over at Carve and figured out how it works for them and their business, and they've been able to start to work together and help their businesses out. Really, guys, it's crazy to not try it. It's $6 an hour US, $8 an hour Australian, and it literally got me all my time back in my life and helped me just get things done. I get 120 hours a week done in adventure travel, and then I just focus on the bigger things. So head to www.carve.ph/ADVF, get 10 hours free on any task, and here's the show. Back to the show. Do you think that's the biggest one that's missing out is the sleep, Nick? Because obviously people try and look after their body a lot now, I think, with their recovery and their prehab and rehab stuff. Diet is obviously talked about a lot. Yep. Obviously, you got to have your diet,
fads and stuff. And,
you got to have your diet in line, or a lot of your training is obviously useless. But I feel like sleep is the one that's just kind of coming to the forefront of people's minds. It's always been something that nobody, I think, as a general populace, has really taken into account. People don't.
It's like people weren't getting the fundamentals right when they were the easiest thing to fix.
Yeah, that's right. I think. Do you think that's the last domino to fall with people is the sleep thing? I feel like that might be the case.
Yeah, it's probably one of them. I would say lifestyle might be the last domino.
Yeah.
So what do you mean by lifestyle?
Well, like the
drinking
go.
And partying.
Yeah, like maybe drinking and partying, but I think that's maybe
That's got to be good for you.
Yeah, of course. It's fantastic, right? Good times anyways. But I think, just the ability to create space in your life to kind of decompress. That's kind of what I mean by that. That's hard to do because there's so many factors. But I agree, like sleep is starting to come around in people's minds. And I always say if you're an athlete, you need 10 hours of sleep. And so, naps can kind of count in there. But there's an interesting, I just heard something on a podcast where research that was done for a long period of time on young teenagers going through puberty, and there was like a subset that got less sleep than the other, and the ones that got less sleep actually are shorter than the ones who received more sleep during puberty. And so
really,
yeah. So the idea of like anabolic hormones and sleep, I mean, it's well known, but they're very, very connected, right? And if you think about, here's the kicker, right? Is I look as a coach, I think about if I want to get you stronger, my best chance of doing that. I mean, aside from like an intelligent program and making sure that we're all addressing all the right priorities and all that stuff, like that's a given, right? To be a good coach these days, like that's a given. But I think the missing piece and really the $1 million kind of aha moment is, as a coach, if I can get you anabolic, right, and hormonally really, really functioning at a high level, like bam, like we've got magic. If you think about everything that goes into that, sleep being huge, it's just kind of a no-brainer, right? So,
what about, here's a really specific one that in no way relates to me, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. How would you talk to someone about getting, that 8 to 10 hours sleep when they have to be up sort of 5 a.m., 5:30 a.m. before work, that sort of thing?
Yeah, I think, going to bed earlier, right? But
oh, right. I was going to bed at 2.
Geez, there's a real simple answer to this question. I wonder if
yeah. I mean, the things about, turning off all the electricity in your house and not eating, because I know that when you eat, cortisol can go up and melatonin can be suppressed and little things like that. But do you have any sort of really good little tips?
Yeah, I think there's a bunch of different apps out there. It kind of depends on how you structure your life, but eliminating blue light in the evening hours is huge. There's some apps out there that'll like take it away. The new iPhone, right? The update that for you. And so eliminating blue light once the sun is set, I think is huge. I think dark, cool rooms. You think about earplugs. Just I don't know. Maybe I take it for granted but I feel like people know that. I don't know. Yeah. You're not. But yeah, I think cool, dark room, that kind of thing. I think there's some supplements out there. I think usually we're all pretty deficient in zinc, magnesium, even vitamin D, right? Vitamin D is more of like a hormone, but I think zinc, magnesium in the evenings can have a huge, huge effect on quality of sleep. And so I think, and then nutrition. So if we eat there's this, I don't know. I think there's this preconceived notion that, and you kind of mentioned it, right? Like you don't want to eat before you go to bed, but I think a big bolus of carbohydrates will actually drop cortisol, and then your increased melatonin is more likely to happen. And so I think carbohydrates with dinner, like dense carbohydrates, can really set you up for some quality sleep. A lot of people don't think about that, but yeah,
okay.
And then simple things like coffee. I mean, if you're drinking coffee at 5 p.m., chances are you're going to have disrupted sleep, or at least
that's right.
Right?
Yeah, oh sure. Well, I mean, I just take pure speed.
right.
Cool. So what excites you as a coach, Nick? What do you like? What do you see when you get athletes come in? What do you like really digging into most?
I think I like the process. I like the transformation of a person. Mm-hmm. And that isn't defined in like, oh my gosh, like this person hit a PR, I'm so happy for him. I mean, that's awesome. But I think mental,
Growth. Is that what you're looking for?
mental growth, like milestones, right? Like
Yeah, for sure. Yep.
like changes in perspective, something that is bigger than themselves. That's what really excites me. And so it can be anybody, like someone coming to us for health, right? Like, I've coached somebody for many, many years, and this person hasn't been able to walk down into her basement for just to do simple things like laundry or whatever, like, I don't know, a decade, right?
Wow.
And so, coming in and working together, and I remember very vividly this person sharing this experience of her going into her basement and being able to do her own laundry for the first time in a decade. And that to me is, I mean, I get goosebumps, right? Like that is huge, and that's bigger than themselves. And so that can come in the form of something like that. It can come in the form of somebody being physically fit and having enough energy to play with their kids. Or it could be, a CrossFit athlete standing on the podium, right? I mean, I had a master's athlete that won the 55-year-old at the CrossFit Games, right? She dominated.
Yeah, awesome.
And even though that's cool, the growth that she experienced behind the scenes, which I feel pretty lucky to be privy to that and see that, like that is what's cool to me, right?
Yeah.
So
sure, absolutely.
That's what drives me, I think.
And it's also the impact it has on their life. I mean, there's no real difference between someone getting a bar muscle up or being able to walk down the stairs unassisted. Well, I mean, that's a terrible example because they're both clearly better than the other. But it's like if someone's been trying to get a bar muscle up for years and years and years, and you finally get them that little thing that just gets it for them, and you see the smile on their face. It's just it's one and the same, really, isn't it?
Yeah. So Massif Athletics, our I don't know what you call it, like our motto or tagline or whatever is investing in human potential, and that's what I feel like as coaches, and I think anybody in the fitness industry, that's what we're kind of doing, right? Like I'm personally investing myself into somebody. When I decide to coach somebody, it's a big commitment on my part,
for sure.
Energy, emotionally, like I'm super excited.
So what about for yourself? Like obviously you're trying to better everybody. How do you look at bettering yourself as a coach in way of, you talked about reading your starting strengths and your all your different journals and articles and stuff. Like, what do you do day to day to get better as a coach, to get better at dealing with people? A lot of coaches out there, I think, will probably listen to this. And me personally, that was one of the things that I took pride in most when I was coaching, was trying to find ways that I would always be getting better myself. What do you do to kind of make sure you're still progressing and you're still gaining knowledge? Yeah, what do you do, Nick?
Well, right, these days it's harder. And I wish I could do more, right? I think I read books. I'm reading a book right now called Thanks for the Feedback. And it's actually kind of funny. The science and art of like receiving feedback well. And that's important for me. I think making sure that I surround myself and I talk to people that are smarter than myself. So I'm always kind of reaching out to folks, having consults with them, kind of looking for opportunities to learn new things. I think, right now, I think it's those two things, right? I listen to a lot of books on tape, podcasts, read some books, and then I search out personal relationships that I can kind of learn a lot from. And I think recently, and I say probably in the past year or so, I've been giving away a lot more than I've been taking in, which was a little concerning because I was wondering about my own development, my own education, and kind of like, was I going to stall out or stagnant? And, is that service to my clients and my athletes, and, not pursuing, because I think every coach needs to be pursuing actively to do everybody justice. They need to be, a perpetual student. And so But what I found is that by sharing everything that I know, it's taught me a lot. It's taught me a lot of context around things that I know, but I didn't know how each of the pieces related to one another, which has given me a greater perspective on, I mean, whether it's like, designing out a 12-week cycle for somebody, or, understanding how I'm peaking somewhere for the games, or if it's more in terms of like seeing how, sleep is affecting this person's recovery. So it can be intricate or it can be pretty broad, but I think like I feel very fortunate. I have a big knowledge base. And the past year with giving it away and sharing it and educating my coaches and having these camps and has really given me an unexpected opportunity to kind of put all the pieces together and build some context for me, which is actually pretty cool.
See, for me, coaching is all about the old, the compliment sandwich. Like, it's like, geez, that's a nice haircut. Geez, your squat was very average, but where'd you get that haircut? Squat, that's all you have to do. And then they fall in love with you.
Yeah.
No, that was good. What about, so do you have, talking about like the resources and books that you read and stuff, have you got any good ones that me and Tommy were talking about last night about... How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie.
Great book.
I'm not sure if you've read that book, but but for us, it's a book that I feel like I should read it every 6 months because it's just got some great tenets on how to be a more likable person, really, but not trying to trick people in doing that, but obviously doing it by being a better person and caring about others around you and taking
compliment sandwiches.
Yeah, compliment sandwiches. But it's just something that should always be at the forefront of your mind with dealing with people. Do you have any particular books and resources that has helped you along the way in dealing with people, because it's such a difficult task, learning different personality types and young and old, man, woman. Anything that you actually go to that we can send to readers' ways?
Yeah, I think, there's so many, right? I'm trying to like file of facts in my brain's going through all the books that I can't remember half of them about. I think the Color Code book is pretty cool. That in terms of dealing with people, I thought that was pretty interesting. I really like
that one about the Color Code. I haven't heard that one before. Yeah,
the Color Code. So basically, it's a personality book. So there's a personality test where it's like you're red, blue, yellow.
Oh, yes, I have heard about that. Yes.
Yeah, and so that one helped me in terms of being able to understand people's values and motivations and things like that. So I thought that one's pretty interesting. I think, I don't know. Outliers, I thought was, Malcolm Gladwell's Outliers was pretty good. That was pretty impactful. Just in talking about people's influences and how whatever's happening, one of the things I took away is like whatever's happening right now isn't about now, right? It's about the 10 years that led up to it, even if it's not related. And then the Braverman test. I've been using the Braverman test in my camp. So anybody who comes to my camp, I will email them a Braverman test and they'll take it and then they'll show up to the camp and we'll discuss it and their results. And you can just Google it. You can take it yourself. You can only take it once in life, they say. I'm curious to see if it does change, but, and it's just, it kind of gives you some insight in terms of what type of person you are. I use it to determine what type of athlete they are. And it's an interesting test. It's like you have, if you're GABA dominant versus like dopamine dominant, and there is some ties to kind of what hormones you secrete and stuff, but it basically sets up some insight into saying this person is going to thrive in a consistent, knowing what's going on, low volume, steady state versus the person who needs new stimulus to make progress all the time. And there's some intricacies in that. Yeah, but it's pretty cool. And what I'd love to do is be able to give that to every new athlete I take on, but I just, I kind of haven't. The book, I bought like 150 copies like a year ago of Mastery, and
Okay.
and that's a book that I send out to athletes of mine, and it talks about this becoming a perpetual student and the art of practice and our approaches to mastery and how different people kind of get there. And so I thought I bought 150 of them, so I must like.
Yeah. Must have thought it was all right.
Yeah, that's right. How accurate do you think that personality trait testing is? So you mentioned before the Braverman test.
Yeah.
Yeah, like because I feel strongly that mindsets can change with mindfulness and all that sort of stuff. And do you think with a test that you said you're only supposed to do sort of once in your life, that it could be accurate at some point in your life, and then you can go through a lot of things. Like I know the brain goes through its last stages of development around the sort of 17 to 26 mark, or 17 to 24, whatever it is. How accurate do you think that can be for your whole life?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's interesting. Having kids and realizing no matter what we do as parents, they are kind of who they are. I mean, obviously, like we influence them, everything, but like I have an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old, and they couldn't be more different in terms of personality, right? And everyone's probably heard this, right? And so obviously, like we can influence them through through nurture, but then there's the whole like nature thing. So like they have been born to a certain degree with what they have. They're so different, and they come from the exact same parents, and it's pretty pronounced. And I think that if I pay attention to how they've grown up, their personalities at the core are kind of who they are, and maybe they've just been highlighted in different ways. And I look back to my own childhood and like the way I was, and I don't believe that we're that much different. And I've had some pretty life-changing events, right? And I still feel like I'm at the essence of who I still am. This explorer, this adventurer, this kid who just wants to experience new things. And so in whatever I do, I kind of take that. Now, the Braverman test is more about neurotransmitters, and it looks at dopamine, GABA, serotonin, and the release of those things. And so I don't know if relative to the Braverman test, if that changes much, but so I believe kind of who we come into our adolescent age at the heart of who we are is kind of who we are for the rest of our life. It doesn't mean we're like, trapped in fate and we can't change things or anything. But I think the essence of who we are, that's I could be totally wrong, but that's kind of how I've seen it and experienced it. What do you guys think? Do you guys think that that's accurate?
I think, I was sort of discussing mentally with myself, when you were talking about that. And I think the essence of who we are can maybe probably wouldn't change too much, but I think how we respond to things and how we're perceived can change. I think with big life-changing events, we can start to look at things differently, and especially with meditation and all that sort of stuff becoming more prominent, you can definitely start to not respond to things differently. But in terms of who we are, at the core of ourselves, like adventurers and this and that, I think, I think you're probably on the right level there. What do you think, Bill?
I've definitely changed a lot as a person myself.
Yeah.
But over the last 10 years, but it's probably the things that I was doing, not the person that I am. So I tend to agree.
Yeah.
I mean, you dictated who you are seen to be, and
is what you do.
But it's also where you are, your surroundings and your settings. But I think the person that you are, like what you really think about things and what you really think about the world, what you really think about other people, probably doesn't change too much. It's all those other influences that clog up your life and pull you in different directions. But yeah, I think it's probably right. It's interesting. I've never done a personality test. I'd like to see. I'm always thinking about what type of a person I am. Talk about being an introverted extrovert? And I'm just always trying to learn more about the mind. So it's very fascinating to me. But yeah, I think most people are, once you get to that adult, young adult age, you're probably deep down the person that you're always going to be, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But
you should take a color code test and a Braverman test.
Yeah, there was
cool.
one that one of my mates down at my weightlifting club put me on to. I don't know if it was the Braverman test. He sent it to me a couple of months ago, and I just haven't got around to doing it. We had a really interesting conversation about what he found out about himself and how it made perfect sense. And then he sent it through to me, but I haven't been able to do it yet.
Yeah, because you can do a test and you go. It's like going to a hypnotherapist or a clairvoyant or something, going, you are going to die at some point. Oh my God, this person knows everything about me. It's just like, come on. I feel like
I don't know if it's the same as that, but
it's like, what? So what? Can you shed some light on the color code test, Nick?
Yeah. So basically, that's more of a personality test, and I think that can change. And so it's basically, all the cliched personalities like type A personality, right? Like the follower, the leader, the person who likes organization versus the person who's more free flowing and adapt to situations. The person who communicates in certain ways. And I think the color code test just kind of talks about, I forget how many questions. I haven't looked at the color code test in a while, but it's good. You can download color code test, the Braverman test online and take it, and it'll tell you your answers. And, and then they're usually like, oh, you're a yellow personality, or you're a blue personality, or a red personality. And I've used that a little bit in my business, not as much as I probably should, but trying to figure out, okay, I have this position, and what type of personality do I need? And there's some theories in there saying that whatever you are, you should never hire the same color, right?
Right.
If you're a red, you don't want to hire any reds in your business. And so that's pretty interesting.
That is interesting, yeah.
Yeah. So that's more of, I think that can change through influences on how we behave, how we communicate, how we operate.
Yeah, cool. So, all right, so you're talking about so you coach a broad spectrum of athletes, and you touched on the fact you had a Masters Games, CrossFit Games champion. So how does it work programming for a Masters athlete, but a Masters athlete at a high level? Like, obviously, with younger CrossFit athletes in the physical primes of their life, they train a lot. They train very hard. The body's able to recover day to day pretty quickly in a lot of cases. When you're dealing with somebody who's 55 years old, like you mentioned, how does it go looking after that person in way of recovery and just the general training volume? Is it a lot more play it by ear and day to day you have to check in? Or talk about how that's been for you.
Yeah, like most things, I've probably learned a lot of it just through, designing a plan, seeing the plan through, and then realizing, oh man, I messed that up, or, oh, that really worked well. Like, why did that work well? And so what I've learned over the, I don't know, however many years is that everybody is different, and it's relative to the resources we have available. And what I mean by that is you can just kind of mentally make a list. So if you're young, right, so you have the resource of time, assuming that you're not married, you don't have kids, right, but you don't have a full-time job, a lot of assumptions, right? So these resources are there. Your hormones, right, are just jamming. So that's a huge resource, right? Maybe money is scarce, so that's a lack of a resource. So you can just kind of add up the resources you have. If you fast forward 30 years, you have kids, you have family, hormones are not like 20-year-old hormones, right?
For sure.
But maybe you have more money. So I think it all comes down to resources and the ability to recover. I will say that the one thing that is very clear to me is that you can put a young athlete, and I say young, mean biological, but also training age. Training age is a huge factor to how you train somebody. But if you take a young athlete, you can overtrain them or overreach them, and it's less of a big deal because you just back off, they recover, they bounce back, and throw them back into the gauntlet, right? Now, with an older athlete, if you overtrain an older athlete or even sometimes overreach, it takes a lot longer to get out of that hole. And it's very, very obvious. And so I tend to be a little more conservative the older the athlete. And that's training age. If you have somebody who's been training in a sport for 20 years and they're 30 years old versus someone who's, never played a sport in their life, and they've been training a year, that's very different in the types of stress they can take. And so I look at it as like, and there's plenty of analogies out there, but the kind of account, recovery account, bank account, however you want to call it. And so if you're a young investor, right, you don't have a lot of money, so you can put, 50 cents in, and it's really easy to take all your money out, right? But it's really easy to pay back that debt. Now, if you fast forward and you're 55 years old and you've built up thousands of hours of training and all this stuff, and now you have hundreds of thousands of cents, right? It's going to take a lot longer to, as you withdraw that stuff, to notice anything. But if you notice something, it's going to take a lot longer to actually repay and to basically repay that debt. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. I never actually thought about training age or had it mentioned to me until just recently. I started weightlifting and taking it seriously at 28, and I spoke to my coach about the next couple of years and like talking about the future and stuff like that. And I said, he talked about me moving up 2 weight classes, and I told him I'm no spring chicken, and he said, "But you are a spring chicken." He goes, "You've only been doing it for a year." He goes, "You got 6 or 7 years left in the sport if you want to," because basically I'd never come from a strength training background, and I'd never thought about it like that. So and I think you definitely have to take that into account. But that's interesting. So do you focus? Do you have any more high level athletes that you focus your time on inside of your gym, Nick, or you got a couple of elite athletes? How does it work?
Gosh, I have like the full gamut. We coach. I coach everything from CrossFit Games champions to people who are on the bubble in terms of regionals, open. Have some professional climbers. World Cup skiers.
Awesome. That's
cool. So, and that's the thing. So I think some folks, they look at Massif Athletics and they're like, oh, well, what do they do? And the beauty about my approach and what I love to do, I love coaching CrossFit. I think coaching a CrossFit athlete is the most rewarding thing, or one of them that I've experienced from like the geek inside me, right? Like looking at exercise physiology and all this stuff. Just because there's so many concurrent signaling happening, and there's so much that needs to happen for this person to be successful in the sport, the demands. But I'm a big proponent and to look at how, like, my methodology, for lack of a better term, is I focus on the process. And so I look at the pieces involved. So someone comes in and they, put them through an assessment, put them through some testing, and I'm looking at the pieces and how that relates to what they want to accomplish in life. And so the process allows really us to coach a variety of different people. And so whether you're a world-class skier or a CrossFit Games athlete, understanding the characteristics that you need to be successful, and then understanding how do you train that very specific characteristic, stress it, have it get better. That's really the key to coaching, right? You need to understand the sport.
Yeah, that's right.
The demands. But yeah, I think that, that's kind of how I think the process is very, very important. People get caught up on, I don't know, like CrossFit athletes, right? It's like, oh, well, it's this idea of what CrossFit should be, and 21-15-9, all this different stuff, and like if they're not doing that they're not going to get better at their sport. I think is a big I don't know. I mean, a big bias in the sport, and it's
big fallacy.
Yeah.
Just a big phallus.
Yeah, big phallus.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
All right. So, what about mindset? Do you have any mindset stuff that you go over with your athletes? Are you trying to get these guys anything in way of meditation or journaling, or is there anything that you use with your athletes, either in general walks of life or in like in competition settings? Yeah. Do you have anything that you go to there?
I do. I think journaling is great, like writing stuff down. So I think that understanding your purpose and moving and living with purpose is one of the key components. I think perspective, doing things to broaden your perspective, writing is one of them. It's huge, right? Is important. And then practice, and not just getting in and practicing, but having this attitude of the art of practice. I think those three things are at the heart of developing someone's mindset. And so if you think about the tools that we can use to kind of highlight each one of those, it can be broad. It can be breathing. It can be, journaling. I think the quickest way to make big gains in mindset is to go do something that involves a visceral fear, a fear of drowning, a fear of falling. And that will impact all three of those the quickest and the most powerful. So, for instance, like if you've never been climbing, go climb, because what you'll find is what will limit you might not be the physicality of being able to move up the rock. It's like, your mind is pretty powerful, or swimming, right? So I think that those are key. The one thing that I've been trying to develop, and I'm very careful with adjusting someone's mindset. And the reason for that is, if you're a competitor and you're a champion, then, and let's say, so out there, right? If you look at world champions, sometimes they're very, very critical of themselves. I think that's one. They're harsher on themselves than probably anybody else. And I think that's probably a pretty consistent characteristic. And if you think about it in normal terms of a human being, you're like, man, that's not really that healthy, right? Like always beating yourself up and feeling like you're not good enough and so forth and so on. And so I have to be, and I think as coaches, we all need to be very, very careful of the changes we make, because if you take that away from somebody, are they capable of being a champion anymore? And I don't know that, and that's a very, very like broad answer, but so I'm very careful of like, it might not be the healthiest thing, or I might not think it's the healthiest thing, which is just really one opinion. But if I don't believe that it's healthy and I'm going to change that, like I have to realize that there's going to be consequences and ramifications. It could get them better, but it also could shut off all the internal motivation and kill their opportunity to get, back on the podium, for instance.
Oh, yeah. And what I find really interesting about that is it's, you have to look at someone like Matt Fraser, who's obviously a freak athlete, but his obsession with training over the last couple of years has just been insane, especially in winning it for this year. Like the last year that he did all the bulk of training, from what we saw from following him on social media and watching him on YouTube and stuff, was just insane. But I find it interesting, that concept of, obsessing to make yourself better, and are they actually happy? I mean, a really good friend of mine read Andre Agassi's book, who's obviously the one of the all-time greats in tennis, and apparently the overwhelming sort of idea that he got from that book was that Andre Agassi was never happy, and he never
hated tennis.
He literally hated tennis throughout his time.
Yeah.
It was just like that was the only thing that he was good at, and it's kind of like, as a coach, obviously our goal is to make someone better at CrossFit or make someone better at the sport. But if that internal motivation is overwhelmingly negative, do we sort of take a step back and try to sort of influence their mindset where they probably won't get as good at CrossFit or at the sport that we're coaching them, but they'll actually be happier in life? Do you ever think about that?
Of course.
Yeah.
I think, and that's exactly it, right? So if you made Agassi happy, like, would he be good anymore?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And what are we responsible as coaches? Are we responsible to make someone happy, or are we responsible to make someone good? And that, you go down some deep, dark rabbit holes with that question. But,
well, I mean,
you got to ask the athlete, really, don't you?
Oh,
you say you want to win the games because there's going to be sacrifices, or do you want to be, strong, fit, and healthy, and you probably won't make it to the podium, or mentally healthy, I should say. Mentally healthy.
Yeah, and you can even go further down the rabbit hole and say something like, why are we living as a physical entity?
Yeah.
Slightly off topic.
But I think it ties directly in. And so, people's why, and gosh, in the past year or two, everyone's talking about, find your why, and this is the why. And as much as I kind of am tired of hearing the why, but just because it's, I think, a lot more complex than that. But I think really understanding your motivations is important. But I think there's a time to kind of turn some things off while you're in training. And January isn't the time to start thinking about why do I want to do CrossFit, and why,
Yep.
That comes in end of July, August. Okay, am I going to do this for the next year? Kind of thing. And so, yeah. And I always say, I say this jokingly to all my athletes, is I don't really care about how you feel. And anybody who knows me and coaches me, they'll understand that. I'm I have great caring for all my athletes, but if if you come to me and you're like, hey, I'm bored, or what, I'm like, I don't care. You put in the work. You have a goal. I don't care how you feel. Feelings are objective. And they really don't matter, with regards to, if you feel like you had a good session, or you feel like you had a bad session, is how you feel going to influence what you get out of the session, right? You're still going to get better. You're still implementing a long-term plan. And so I have, less worry about if someone's, satisfied with a session or not.
As long as they're getting the work done.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's kind of it's become this kind of inside joke about feelings don't matter. Because as an athlete, if you're trying to get to the podium, whether you're bored, happy, feeling satisfied or nervous or whatever, it's
irrelevant. You just have to get there.
Yeah, it's irrelevant, right?
Yeah, it's irrelevant.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, guys, here we go. 10 seconds. What is the meaning of life?
To win.
That was all right. So Nick, lastly, before we go to 6 from 6, let's just ask what's next for you and Massif, and what do you have in your horizon, in your sights?
Oh gosh, yeah. So there's so many projects that are going on right now. The one thing I'm trying to do is kind of solidify the camps that we have going on. And so we'll be traveling around, kind of hosting camps. So those folks who are interested, we can kind of set up for a 2-day camp at their place. So we have a couple on the East Coast, one central US type of thing. And so really getting that kind of solidified. And then I think, personally, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to put together, and this is a long project, but put together some educational material and set up, to enable coaches to learn what I've learned in the ways that I've learned it, because I don't think there's anything out there with kind of how I want to organize it.
Okay, cool.
And and then there's other things like, we're trying to get a sports medicine program done or organized and really built in my gym to facilitate more of a holistic approach. I mean, we've had it for years, but it needs to get going, and just some other things. So.
Cool. Alrighty. Well, to finish off, we've got 6 from 6, Nick, which is 3 questions from me, 3 questions from Tommy.
Love it.
So my first question is, and I normally I asked, are you a well-travelled man before I ask this question, but I'm not going to ask that because I know you are. So the question is, what's your favourite destination on the planet, place that you've been, place that you've travelled to? Can be big, small, can be country, can be little town. What's your favourite destination?
I think right now it's Uskendelen in Norway.
Uskendelen.
Yeah. Uskendelen. What did you just call me?
I went there. So we went to weightlifting Master Worlds last year in Finland, and then we hopped over to Norway and we went climbing in Uskendelen. It's this little fishing village, like just this beautiful area in Norway that's kind of not really visited all that much. And I want to go back for probably a couple weeks and just kind of be there and climb. There's so much unclimbed stuff over there. So
cool. That's definitely one we haven't had before. So second question is your dream destination. So it's in the same vein. Can be anywhere on the planet, big, small, country, continent, town. Uskendelen.
Yeah, Uskendelen. Yeah. I don't know. I feel like I've been to a lot of my dream destinations, and so maybe what I need to do is I need to kind of find it. Maybe that's my
Australia.
Australia, yeah, I've heard Australia's great.
Yeah, it sucks.
Critters. I hear so much about your guys' critters. It's great.
Yeah, we got it all around here. Anything that you think might be able to kill you, well, it can over here.
Yep. And it will.
Yeah. So, all right. My last question is normally about books and resources that you've read, but we've kind of touched on that. So I'm going to throw back to a question that I used to use.
Oh, good one.
Which is if you're
What are you wearing right now?
if you're stranded on a desert island and you've got 3 things to keep you sane, what would they be?
Oh man, that is.
It's a tough one.
3 things to keep me sane.
Keep you entertained.
Yeah, I think one of them would be my wife.
Cool.
You're going to have to say that, don't you?
I have to. Yeah, she'll listen to this. So.
Yeah.
Gosh, I don't know. 3 things to keep me sane.
Depends how entertaining your wife is. You can just have your wife if you want.
Is she from Uskendelen?
Yeah. I don't know. I think it would be like very practical items, like a knife and like a lighter or something. I'm very, and then I'd probably love it. Like if I was stranded on an island, like that would be my thing. I would love it.
Very man versus wild style.
Yeah.
That's good. I like it. Tommy.
Cool. Alrighty. What are you wearing?
What am I wearing?
No. As long as you're wearing pants, I don't really care. So first question, mate, is what do you like to do in your spare time or when you have downtime, apart from climbing, which...
Yeah,
these... Stop there.
You just said one word there and everyone was waiting for you to say the next.
I know. Yeah. Sorry, Nick.
What do I like to do? I don't know. I mean, right now I don't have much spare time, so it's I'd say surf.
Ooh, nice.
I miss surfing. I don't do it all that often, but yeah, I kind of grew up surfing, and that's probably the one thing that I would love to do in my off time. But I do climb. That's kind of what I do. So.
Where would you surf when you were growing up?
Just like West Palm, Sebastian in Florida.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so we make a drive up north and surf there.
Cool.
Alrighty. Second question. Did you have a role model growing up or a big inspiration? Somebody you looked up to?
Yeah, I think, no, I didn't. So growing up, I wanted to be an astronaut, and I wanted to go into like the Air Force Academy's like aerospace program. And so I definitely remember like all the shuttle launches and things like that. So I think there wasn't any one person. There was a teacher. So I had a teacher in school, in high school, who was a photography teacher. And I remember I was a troubled youth. I have like 6 yearbooks from like 4 years of high school. Long story, but you know, he used to always pull me aside and kind of tell me how it was. And he was one of the few people in my life at that point, like that didn't sugarcoat anything, or, you know, kind of talked to me as an adult and like how things were. And I remember that vividly. And that probably influenced me in a lot of ways. So.
Ooh, okay, cool. And finally, mate, if you could invite 3 people to dinner, dead or alive, who would they be and why? And obviously your family can come unless you don't want them to come in, which they won't be there.
Yeah, so I thought about this one, and I think I really enjoy my kids and my wife. Like those are my 3 people, my 2 daughters and my wife. Like that's if I want to have dinner with somebody.
Is your wife sitting? Is she in the room?
Yeah,
or?
I got a feeling
she's giving me the evil look. Like,
yeah.
holding up cue cards.
Hello, my name is Nick. What about? All right, give us one person. So your family can already be there.
4 people in the room now.
Yeah, 4 people in the room. Yep. So your family can be there,
people.
and then one person can come.
Man, I don't. Yeah, I really. I'm kind of a recluse, maybe in that way. Yeah, who would I like? Dead or alive?
Do you have any climbing heroes?
Yeah, I saw
the movie Miru with. Have you seen Miru, the documentary with Ren and Ozturk and Meru? Do you have any climbing heroes that? I'm trying to help you out here, Nick.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing is like I've kind of met most of my heroes, and I've like talked to them and things like that. That's
really cool. It's lucky.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, maybe it's just like I'm really satisfied in my life, and I'm trying to think.
That's perfect.
Trying
man,
to help
really,
out here, guys. I don't know.
That's all right.
That's good. We'll edit this stuff out anyway in the end, Nick. So. Just joking.
What about the guy you spooned on the mountain?
Yeah, I'd have him over.
That's his wife.
Yeah, that's right. I'm pretty sure he's from Uskindelen.
Yeah.
Excellent.
No, you know who? I would be my grandfather. So he passed away, and he was a huge influence in my life. And I'd probably have him over. He was an amazing man. Like, you know, when he moved to Argentina, like, I don't know, however many his father came, whatever. But he used to work cleaning floors to get like, I don't know, a token or something to give to the guy to go across the river to go work in this factory. And he started as like, cleaning up, and he basically worked himself into part owner and like CEO of this big giant, company that built kind of railroad and bridges and things like that. So, so I kind of regret never picking his brain more about his life and that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I think that's who I'd have over.
No, cool. That'd be a good family get together.
Yeah.
Cool. All right.
Well, awesome, Nick. Is anything you want to plug? Where can people find you on social media, things like that?
Yeah, everyone can find me on Instagram at the Nick Fowler. You can hit me up there, message me there. Massif Athletics here in Salt Lake. I'm also strength and conditioning, head of strength and conditioning for Brute Strength. And yeah, that's kind of my world. So if you're interested in more of what I have to say, I'd love to share anything I know. If you got questions, send it on over, and I'll be happy to chat with whoever.
Cool.
Awesome, man. Great show.
All right. Thanks for coming on the show, Nick. And that's a wrap.
Awesome. Well, appreciate it, guys. Have a good one.
Cool. Thanks, brother.
Alrighty, guys. Hope you enjoyed that show there. I really enjoyed it. What do you think, mate?
Yeah, it was good. I just think he's a madman.
Yeah, so do I.
I think he's a madman, but he's really smart and knows what he's talking about. So
and he's got an extensive beard, apparently.
Yeah.
A really cool beard.
Yeah, the rustling of the beard at the start of the show will be
Are we leaving that in?
quite frustrating for the listeners.
Yeah, that's right. They'll love it.
Yeah, that was good.
Alrighty, guys. Let's have a quick... So, if you like us, number one, if you think we're pretty cool, even if you hate us... Just jump onto iTunes and give us a rate and review. But if you do hate us, obviously, just try to make it a little bit more positive. That really helps us, guys, just growing the show. And from there, we can get more guests for you. Some cooler guests and stuff. Not that we haven't had cooler guests already. I'm making a mockery of this.
Shout out to all of our past guests.
Yeah, that we aren't cool. Jump onto www.adventurefittravel.com, guys. And while you're there, click the podcast tab, and that will take you to all of the show notes for the show. Keep up to date with anything Adventure Fit, specifically anything Adventure Fit Radio that Bill and I are doing. And while you're there, guys, join the mailing list. So that's the best bang for your buck to keep up to date with all that stuff. So, guys, we are once again brought to you by True Pride. Let's get on board True Pride. Head to www.truepride.com.au/ADVF to get your budget back in order, save $4 million guaranteed per week, and get the joining fee of $297 waived when you call via their website. Jump onto Carve, guys. Carve, www.carve.ph/ADVF. Get 10 hours free on any project when you head there using the ADVF link there. And then finally, guys, Adventure Fit Travel. Got some cool stuff coming up. Head to www.adventurefittravel.com for all the info. Check out all the trips, all the blogs, and all the special stuff. Until next time, bye-bye.
See you later.
Discovery Roger, go for deploy.